Welcome to MCO455 Microcontroller Concepts for winter of 2024. The three theory sections A, B, C, D, and E F are all set up in exactly the same fashion here. Important dates and deadlines, course outline, course addendum, textbook, professor contact information, video lectures, practice quizzes, chapter quizzes, term tests, final exam, and Nearpod results and Zoom stuff. Under important dates and deadlines, you're going to find when the college is closed, when classes begin, when tuition is due, and when you can get refunds. If you want to see the course outline, you can click here. But one of the more important things is the course addendum. Course addendum is going to show you week by week what's going to be covered, and when evaluations such as lab quizzes, chapter quizzes, term tests, lab tests, and so on are going to be given. It even shows you when certain things are going to be changed. For instance, Family Day, the college is closed on February 19th, and it says see the bottom of the next page for rescheduling term and lab tests. So if we go down to the bottom of the second page, it says due to a holiday on Monday, February 19th, the following changes will be made, and it shows when term tests, lab tests, and so forth are going to be rescheduled because of that particular holiday. At the end of the addendum on page 3 of 3, you're going to see the theory and the lab breakdown. Chapter quiz is 10%, term test 30%, and final exam 20%. And for the lab quizzes are 10%, and the 2 lab tests make up 30% of your mark. But the most important thing to remember is you must pass both the lab and the theory to pass the course. If you fail the lab or the theory, you failed the course. For this course, all evaluations are done online, and these will be done in a multiple choice true-false format. For the entire semester, there's nothing to be handed in. Now, this type of evaluation is true for both the theory and for the lab. Now, all of the lab evaluations, whether lab quizzes or if they are lab tests, they're in person, which means you physically have to be in the lab to do the lab quiz. Now, you'll be doing them on the terminals in the lab. If you decide to try and do this outside the lab in that same time period, because I take attendance, anybody whose name is not on the attendance to do it in the lab will get a mark of 0. So you have to physically be in the lab in person to do all lab evaluations, whether lab quizzes or lab tests. All theory is done in a flexible mode, and that involves the evaluations as well, whether they're chapter quizzes, term tests, or final exam. You have the option to do either be in the class to do it or not in the class and somewhere else and doing it. Now, the thing is that if your internet kicks out and you're in the class, I can reset your attempt and everything is good. If you're not in the class and there's a problem, then you lose whatever marks are on that particular evaluation, because I will not reset anything because you're not physically in the class, and I will not allow you to redo the evaluation at a later date. So being in the class, the only difference is between being in the class and being somewhere else is you can't talk in the class. You can bring all your stuff. Everything for theory is open book. All labs are to be pre-done in an open lab before the lab class. The open lab schedule will be made available to you within the first week or so of class. So if you don't pre-do the lab before you come in, then you're not going to understand what goes on. And the lab quizzes themselves are done in the lab class 30 minutes in. So if you've gone to an open lab and you've pre-done the lab, you come into the lab class, and what you're going to have is 30 minutes to ask questions, figure out what you didn't understand, and then 30 minutes in you do the lab quiz. Now, lab tests are different because the lab tests are going to start right at the beginning of the class and go for 90 minutes. All theory evaluations will have a 15 to 20 minute window in which to start the evaluation. If you're too late, if you're more than 20 minutes late, you won't be able to start the evaluation and your mark will be 0. And this is true whether you're coming into the class or doing it online. So if you choose to do it online and you have any internet issues, as I mentioned before, I will not be able to reset the attempt, and you're not going to be allowed to retake it at a later time. So for the bigger evaluations, such as your term test and your final exam, I strongly suggest you show up to the class. The only thing you can't do is talk, but it's open books. You can bring in all your material. Now, anybody that wants to do it in class can have their attempt reset, and I've done this a number of times for people that came into the class. Students that wish to do it in class must have a laptop, tablet, or a phone with a browser. Any combination of these they can bring in. And since you need a phone to authenticate your login to Blackboard anyway, if you've got a phone, that's fine to do all your evaluations if you wish, or you can use any combination of laptop, tablet, and so forth. And don't forget, all of your theory evaluations are open book. Now, there's a textbook for the course, and if we click on this, it's called Embedded IoT Using Embed, and it goes through all sorts of different things such as hex addition, hex subtraction, getting started with I/O, serial communications, using Grove modules, which we'll talk about shortly, and wireless and wired cloud communications. If you should need to contact me, there's professor contact information, and you can see my room is A4026. You can click here to email me, or you can click here and see my timetable. So as far as coming to see me, you can see here from 11:40 till about 1 o'clock, and here's a good time to come if you have problems. I'm usually in a few minutes before my class, so you can either show up here or shortly after my class here or here. I don't have classes Tuesday, and Friday's probably early in the day is a better time to contact me here. For all theory sections and lab sections, the course content is the same up until professor contact information. Right now we're looking at the theory section for AB. So you can see that it's got some things that are not in the lab section. We have video lectures. Let's open that up. And you can see that we have video lectures for week 1, week 2, week 3, 4, and 5, and 6, which is the first half of the course. Then week 7 is where we have our term tests and our lab tests, and then the break week. So the 3 weeks back after the break is week 7, 8, and 9. Video lectures will help you understand the material that's in these various weeks. For instance, if I go here to week 1 video lectures, lab 1, part 1, using calculators with lab 1. So you watch these. Now, the other thing is, once you've done that, there are practice quizzes which are not for marks. And again, that's for week 1, week 2, week 3, 4, 5, and 6, which is the first half of the course. Then there's lab test 1 and term test 1 in the break week. And then 7, 8, and 9 are the first 3 weeks back. So all of these practice quizzes here prepare you for questions that are going to show up on your chapter quizzes. And we have chapter quiz 1, 2, 3, and so on. And this is given again, if you remember looking at your addendum, it tells you when these quizzes are going to show up on what particular days. So our first chapter quiz is going to be on the week of January 22nd, and it's 2%. And it's going to cover everything from week 1, 2, and 3, including all of this material here. Then the following week, we have the chapter 2 quiz. Then we have the chapter 3 quiz here. And then we have term test 1 and lab test 1. Whereas you recall, anything that's on the Monday class will have been moved, and it tells you about that down here as to how things are going to be moved for those particular evaluations. Now, going back to the practice quizzes, we can look at any of these and we can say, okay, let's take a look at, say, number conversions, and it's going to run a quiz where we can start attempt 1, and we can do these as many times as we want to get better and better at the material that's here through drill and practice. So by doing the practice quizzes, you're going to prepare yourself for the chapter quizzes, which prepare you for the term test, which prepare you for the final exam. Now down here, Nearpod results, we don't have anything in there yet, but what we're going to do is in class before the lab test 1 and term test 1 in the first half, we're going to do a evaluation of how well you understand material in the class and post the results under something called Nearpod, and this is where the results will be posted. And then Zoom stuff is where you're going to see Zoom recordings, and under Zoom recordings, anything that we actually videotape in the class will be posted here. And that pretty well covers the theory section. So the next thing we want to do is take a look at the lab section. What we're looking at here is MCO455 AA lab section. And as I said before, it's identical to the theory section, except after professor contact information, it starts with labs. And the first thing under labs you're going to see is the open lab schedule. Now, this is the one from last semester because the winter 2024 isn't available yet. And when we start on lab 2, we do have to pre-do that lab in an open lab. And so by that time, you should see the winter 2024 open lab schedule here. And just give you an idea what it looks like. It's going to look something like this, where it shows you the times and the dates highlighted here with the actual rooms where you can go and use the equipment that you're going to need for lab 2, 3, 4, and so forth. And this will be available for the whole semester. Now under labs, we're going to be working on lab 1, number conversions for the first 2 weeks. And we're going to be working it in the first week for both the lab and the theory class both. Let's take a look and see what it looks like. Now this is lab 1 number conversions. Now this is not to be handed in. What you're going to do is you're going to learn how to do binary to octal to hex and so forth. There's videos here. This is a video link to take you to a YouTube video. This is another YouTube video to show you how to do this. And what I want you to do for the first week is to actually have this printed out and brought to your theory and your lab class for the first and the second week. For those of you who want to get started on lab 1 ahead of time, you can go to your theory section, whether it's A, B, C, D, or E, F. you can scroll down here to video lectures. You can go to week 1 video lectures, and you can look at lab 1 part 1. Now, when you're here, what you can do is make sure that you've set the quality to the highest quality that's here. But also, if you look here at this greater than sign after intro, you're going to find the things that you need. And I want you to go to lab 1 overview, and that will take you directly to where you want to start looking at the material that's here. So it's jumped over a bunch of stuff, and we can just click on here. You can see here that it's going to take you step by step on how to do the first part of lab 1, and then we're going to be doing this again in the theory and the lab class in the first week.
Now the required materials that you have to purchase for MCO455 can be seen by just clicking on this button here, and you can see that this says parts list for summer of 2022, but this part list has not changed now in several years. We populated all the labs with FRDM-K64s, and the other thing that's also in the lab is a Grove Shield that fits on top of the FRDM-K64, so you do not have to purchase either of these two items. What you do have to purchase though for this course is all these other items here. Now what you're going to find for each of these items that you do have to purchase, there's a link here, and you're going to find that of all these suppliers, DigiKey is the preferred supplier for all the devices that you do have to buy. Now you can try Mouser or Grow, but this is the best, and I'll tell you why. If you order something from DigiKey, usually it arrives on your doorstep in 48 hours or less, usually. And if there's any issues with the device not functioning properly, if you talk to me, they will ship you out one that will work, and they'll again be there within 48 hours without you having to send anything back. For instance, here for the Grove RGB LCD backlit display, and if you look here, it tells you how many are in stock, which means there's a lot, and you just add to cart, and you do that for all the different devices that are in the list. Now let's go back and take a look at this one as well, and you can see there's 137 in stock. Even shows you what it looks like and what's going to appear on your doorstep, and so you can go through, order these as soon as you can.
Now once you've gone through and ordered all the parts from here down in the parts list, you do have an option, if you wish, to buy the FRDM-K64 and Grove Shield. This is an option that has not been available until this semester because the FRDM-K64 was almost impossible to find. So at this point, let's take a look. DigiKey, if you go to DigiKey, you'll find that right now there's 74 in stock when there were 0 for quite a while. If we go back and take a look at Newark has 648 in stock, and they're just a little bit cheaper. But one of the other things that you should be aware of is as you start ordering these things, that if you get them all from the same supplier, then you only have one shipping cost. So if you want to get a FRDM-K64 and a Grove Shield so that you can do this stuff and work at home without having to be stuck in an open lab, this is an option you have, but you don't really need to do that because, as I said, all the labs that you're going to be working on, as well as the open lab, have these two devices here. So the only thing that you really need to purchase are these ones in this list from here down.